Hello and welcome to Forged from Iron. Please don't forget to like, comment on and share this stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure you hit the bell icon for alerts and news content. And as always, guys, we thank you very much indeed for your support in this matter. We are here for the latest installment of Mount Matty Rushmore. Just to give you guys that might not be familiar with the premise of this particular concept, allow me to fill in the blanks. So basically, we have a guest in the chair who is going to be given, out of the goodness of our heart, the side of a mountain, like Mount Rushmore in the United States, where you have 4 heads of United States presidents on the side of them. We ask our guest to carve out 4 heads of West Ham players they have seen in their time following the club. Now, they may or may not be the best, most skilled players. They may choose to focus on cult heroes, for example, as opposed to actual legends. They may choose academy graduates. They may choose bad boys. They may even choose someone just on the basis that they quite like them as a person. Any combination of these genres or something completely different, it's their mountain. They can adorn it as they see fit. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have got friend of the channel, Irish Tommy, in the hot seat. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you, Gatesy. Yeah, looking forward to this now. I had to rack my brains for a little while to see what kind of subject matter I wanted, but came up with one. And as you say, like this is, players I've seen play. It's in my time. I didn't want to go back before my time to players that I've only seen footage of. I wanted it to be kind of personal experience. So we're essentially talking Premier League era here, really.
Absolutely, and obviously I know who you've picked, and I know the genre you're focusing on, and it's a very interesting angle that you're taking, I have to say.
Yeah, I've gone with game changers. I've gone with players who could turn a game for us. Even if things weren't going well, maybe not playing well in a game, maybe we're on the defensive, we're not much happening in attack or something, and then those players that can just do something a bit different, a bit special, that can dig you out and make the difference. And we love a player at West Ham like that, who can give that je ne sais quoi, and who can get you off your seat and just do something a little bit different, a little bit special. And so that's what I'm focusing on, the game changers.
Yeah, no, that's a really good genre, Tommy. And as I say, it's not a genre that the guests thus far have attacked, so I'm really looking forward to exploring your game changers. So tell me, who's the first player's head that you're going to go out with your hammer and chisel and diligently carve away at this mountainside to put their visage into the rock face?
First player I'm going with is Carlos Tevis. Obviously, you remember at the time it was just a massive deal. I mean, it was quite, I'd say it was worldwide news when it comes to football. For a club like West Ham and the position we were in at the time, to make a double signing like Tevis and Mascherano. You remember that was the whole Kia Jarabchin thing. Looked dodgy as fuck at the time. And proved to be exactly that, because it was a bit of a head scratcher. It's like, all right, how's this happened? Something's not adding up here. That these two have ended up at West Ham under this Kia Jarabchin fella. So yeah, it proved to be that way, and obviously Sheffield United never let us forget it. We ended up having to pay them quite a chunk of cash after they got relegated. But nonetheless, we came in and they didn't play, let's be honest. Kerbishley wasn't putting them in. And Mascherano was being kept out of the team by Hayden Mullins. Amazingly. That's
sounds
probably
crazy when you say it, doesn't it?
Yeah, when you say it out loud, it seems a bit mental. It's probably Hayden Mullins' claim to fame to this day. When his grandkids ask him, about when he was a player, he'll say, when I was at West Ham, I kept Mascherano out the team.
Yeah.
That would be his go-to.
He'll probably be Argentina manager, and they'll probably there'll be a commentator that's extolling what a fantastic career that he had, and he can turn around to his grandkids and go, he weren't that good. I kept him out of the team in 2006.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but Kerbishley just didn't want to play either of them,
no,
frankly, and we were banging trouble. And obviously the moans and the groans were coming more and more at Upton Park from the crowd because results were not going well. We looked dead to rights for relegation. We were just losing so many games. We weren't playing very well. It was not good to look at. Herbishley was coming under pressure. And I think ultimately it was that pressure plus the constant baying of the crowd at Upton Park to get Tevis on the goddamn pitch. Because, if you're in a sinking boat, you've got Tevis and Mascherano sitting on the bench. I mean, it would be criminal to go down with them sitting on the bench. So eventually, I think
West Ham, though, wouldn't it?
It would have been, yeah. I mean, not only did we make this dodgy deal, but they never played anyway, and we got relegated with 2 world-class players on the bench who didn't get a look in. It was the whole situation, when you think about it, really, Gatesy, was a bit mental.
Yes.
But eventually he caved, Kerbishley. I think he felt the pressure. He felt the noose tightening around his neck. And eventually he did it. He put Tevis in, and the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, he was just absolutely sensational. You want to talk about game changers? I mean, this guy was a game changer for us. Mm-hmm. And frankly, it was a season changer.
Yeah.
He was just a completely different level to all the players around him. Not only on our team, but often even when you include the 11 players that were on the pitch for our opponents. I mean, he was that one world-class player who could just do something a bit different, do something a bit special. And one of those players, every time he gets the ball, you kind of sit forward and you're just waiting for him to do something special. Obviously, broke his duck famously. We all remember broke his duck with that fabulous free kick. Ran over, jumped into the crowd, had the shirt off. And that was the love affair between West Ham fans and Tevis up and running. He was just incredibly special as a player and just did amazing things for us on the pitch. And probably it was the first time in probably a very, very long time as West Ham fans that we had a player like that at the club. Someone who was genuinely special, who was genuinely world-class. And that had us off our seats. And it was a fairy tale thing at the time. So if we're talking about Premier League era game-changing players for West Ham, I think you've got to have Carlos Tevis in there for the impact that he had. And of course, then, just to put the cherry on top of the cake, he scores the winner on the final day of the season at Old Trafford to beat Man United and keep us in the Premier League. I mean, you want to talk about game changer? There it is right there.
Yeah, and as you said, he got his first goal in that game against Tottenham, which was actually a defeat. I was there, and the feeling of total dejection that when that final whistle went, I think if I remember rightly, it was Paul Salteri that got the winner for Spurs, and we lost 4-3. And I remember the footage that I saw latterly, Mark Noble in tears. I was pretty close to it because I thought at that point we're gone. We're not gonna overhaul this. And then we went on some ridiculous run. I think I remember the next game was away at Ewood Park against Blackburn, if I remember correctly. And we won that 2-1 with a goal that I think was highly dubious, if I'm being brutally honest about it. But we got the 3 points, and it just seemed to spark this revival. And to be honest with you, Tom, I don't know about how you feel. I think that everybody within and without the club thought we're dead. And it was kind of like the pressure lifted. So at that point, I think they just went, well, fuck it. Everybody thinks we're down. We probably are down. We know we are. So now we can play with maybe a little bit more freedom and a little bit more sort of like, stuff it. Let's give this a go sort of thing. And little by little, we managed to just sort of reel the teams that were above us back, and Tevis was scoring goals. He was creating goals. I mean, there was it has to be said that there was a lot of other players that came to the fore at the same time as well, the likes of Bobby Zamora, the likes of Rob Green. Everybody seemed to sort of like ratchet up their performance levels for whatever reason, but Tevis
absolutely. I think certainly the win at Ewood was a massive win. And it did give a lift, obviously. But I think it's also another element of this to bring Tevis back into it is that the old saying that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep.
And I think that having Tevis in there, I think it gave the players a lift when they saw what he could do and the kind of impact he was having and just how good he was. I think they felt, with this guy, we've got a chance. If we can get the ball into this guy, he could keep us up. And I think players know when they've got a special player among them. And those players would have known that there was something special there in Carlos Tevis and that he could be the difference between getting relegated and surviving. And I think he did lift the whole team because he was just sensational and he was a very special player. And I think that kind of helped to rally the troops, as it were. It's like, if you're in battle, say, and things aren't going well, it looks like, you're going to lose the battle. You're getting overrun by the enemy. And then this kind of renowned special warrior just turns up and starts wading in and starts hacking people down left, right, and center. All of a sudden you're like, you're re-energized. You're like, fucking hell, okay, we can turn this. This guy's here now. And look what he's doing. Like, we can do this. And then it just rallies everybody, it lifts everyone's spirits, and you kind of get stuck back in again. And I think Carlos Tevis had that effect, that he was just that good a player. I think he rallied everybody around him, and they realized that with him in that team, we had a chance. And obviously, as you say, we went on an insane run. Tevis was just playing out of his skin, and a lot of our other players were playing out of their skin as well, in fairness. I think he inspired them. And so, yeah, I mean, there's no way, like, I couldn't have him on my Mount Rushmore of game changers.
And to be fair, Tom, just looking here at the stats, he played 26 Premier League games. So I've got to ask you the question, in your time as a West Ham fan, can you think of anyone that's had such a huge impact and is thought of with such love and affection by the fan base that only played that amount of games?
I can't actually, no. And it shows the impact that he had. And to be fair, it wasn't just the amazing things he was doing with the ball at his feet. I mean, he really connected with the fans. His attitude was fabulous. I mean, for a player who could have turned up and been a prima donna and been a bit sulky and that could have gone south, that move, very easily if his attitude was not what it was. But he had a wonderful attitude. I mean, he worked his arse off for that team. He ran and he ran and he ran. And you could see that he was really trying. He was just giving it everything for the cause, and that he was really, really trying to keep us in the Premier League. And that it seemed to matter to him. As I say, when he scored his first goal, that amazing free kick at the near post, it clipped one over the wall in at the near post, right in the top bins, and then ran over, took his shirt off, jumped into the crowd, and he just he connected with the fan base in a way that very few players do, and he did it almost immediately. And I think we developed an incredible kind of love and fondness for him. And I think he developed a love and fondness for the fan base too. I mean, I remember when he came back to Upton Park with Man United, and in the pre-game warm-up, he was giving the crossed hammers to the fans, to show the kind of love and respect that was there. So yeah, I think there are very few players. I can't think of anyone, certainly in my time, that's had that much impact that quickly with the fan base.
And there was also the time, I think it was last season, when he came back and he was presented before the crowd. I can't remember what the game was. And he literally just said 4 words, "Come on, you Irons." That was it. And the place went nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, he still has that. I mean, look, once a player connects with the fan base like that, it's for life. They'll always be loved by the fan base.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, you've diligently gone out to your mountainside, and at great personal cost to your little pinkies, you've carved out this amazing figure, this amazing sort of like likeness of Carlos Tevis. And I've got to say, Tom, I'm looking at it, and it's absolutely a sight to behold. But you've got 3 left, mate. So if you thought that this one was difficult and your hands sort of like can rest now, not a chance, matey. So who are you going for next?
Next, I'm going for a player that I absolutely loved watching play football. Again, another player that just had a little something different about him, could do something special. again, in a game where things are not going well, you're struggling a bit, this player could just, his feet were magic. The close control he had was amazing. He had a great vision, and it could score a beaut of a goal too. And we saw him score some absolute beauts as well. And I absolutely loved this player, loved watching him, kind of player, again, that could get you off your seat. And that's Yasi Benoyoon.
Yasi Benoyoon. Talk to me a little bit about, he was a guy that, he had 2 spells at the club, but his second spell only lasted 6 matches. But his first spell, again, unfortunately, probably wasn't here for as long as maybe he otherwise could have been. 2 seasons, 72 matches in all competitions, 63 in the Premier League. But again, impact-wise, I remember, and I'm sure you do, the goal against Fulham.
I was at that game. That was a 3-3 game, right?
I think it was a 2-1, 2-0, if I remember right, because Anton Ferdinand scored.
Oh, yes. I know there was another one where I think he scored a magnificent goal against Fulham in a 3-3 draw at Upton Park, if I recall. I think he chipped the keeper, unless I'm mixing up my games. But that Anton goal, what hell, what a goal! But yeah, but that's Benoyoon all over. I mean, that goal, that chip over the keeper, that little turn onto his left and then a little dink over the keeper. Yeah. I mean, that man just oozed class. Just oozed class. He had unbelievable feet. He just had everything. He's a slight player. Not physically very strong, but again, one of those players that when he receives the ball and gets turned, starts running at a defence. You just go out on the edge of your seat because Yassi's the kind of player that could do something special. He's the kind of player that can sail past 3 players and then dink the keeper. He's just that good. And he was a player I just absolutely loved to watch. It's a pity he wasn't at the club longer, didn't play more games for us. But he was so silky, and I love players like that, I have to say. I love players with those silky skills who just glide over the pitch and can just go past people like they're not there with a couple of little touches. And a wonderful player, Yasi. Loved watching him play. And obviously that goal against Tottenham. That's the one that really... again, looks like he's going to shoot. Defender buys the dummy, just a beautiful little cut in onto his left foot and then slots it in. Just a wonderful player to watch and scored some fabulous goals. And I loved watching Yasi play football.
Very, very intelligent player. One of those players that... Yeah. Even when he was being closely marked, he always just seemed to have that extra second that he needed, that extra yard of pace, and very rarely would give the ball away. His passing was absolutely on point. Yes, strength-wise was probably not at the level of some players, but you don't always need strength if you've got craft and guile and skill. And he could unlock defences like very few players. I likened him. I remember Berkovic, another Israeli player, very, very similar in that he could receive the ball in tight areas and boom, the ball was gone. He'd offloaded it to another, and he'd deliver a defence-splitting pass, and you're like, how the hell's he done that? And Yasi was pretty similar to his compatriot.
Yeah, he was on my list of consideration, Berkovic, I have to say. Oyal was a wonderful player. I can say, and funnily, a compatriot of Benoyoon's, both Israeli lads. And he was very close. I was thinking, will I go Berkovic, will I go Benoyoon? But for me, I think Benoyoon just, for me, was just a little bit maybe more silky, that slightly a bit better. I just loved watching him play football. But yeah, shout out to Oyal Berkovic. What do you call an honourable mention? Absolutely for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, Yasi, fantastic player. Like you, I wish he'd have been here longer than the 2 seasons he was. But again, impact and. Yeah, I commend you on your choice there, Tommy. So you are now 50% of your way through this mountainside. Your hands are in blisters. There's blood everywhere, but you've got to lift up your weary hands with your tools of the trade and go out there and carve out your third head. Now, where are we going with this one?
Okay, with this one, little change of tactic here. I'm not going with the kind of silky skilled player. Just another player that I loved watching and who could turn the game for you, simply because I think he's certainly in the Premier League era the best finisher that we've ever had at West Ham, in my opinion, and that's Dean Ashton. Dean was a special number 9. He was left foot or right foot, didn't matter. He could finish equally comfortably with both, really decent in the air. And again, a game changer for different reasons. Dino was a game changer, again, because he can get you a goal out of nothing. You just give him a chance. You give him a chance in front of goal, he'll take one touch and he'll find the net. I've never seen a finisher like him in a long, long time at West Ham. Just a completely natural finisher. And anytime he got a half a yard of space in or around the box, you just felt like this could be a goal here. He was just a sublime finisher. And he could do everything. He could pile drive one in from 20, 22 yards, low, hard drive, or he could curl one top corner. He could rifle one right past the keeper. I mean, he just had everything. He could, like I said, left foot, right foot, didn't matter. I was always excited when he was on the pitch and fully fit. And when he was in form, I remember that he scored a wonderful goal away at Man City in the quarter-final of the FA Cup 2006. Yeah. When he brought the ball down his chest, played a neat little pass, went for the 1-2, dragged the ball with his right foot onto his left, and then a neat finishing at the near post. I mean, that was just magnificent play from Ashton, and that what he was all about. Without him, I think we wouldn't have had a chance at that FA Cup. I think he was the tip of the spear for us that season, and just a wonderful finisher.
And such a shame that what happened in 2006 after the FA Cup final, he got the call up for England, and in the last training session, he was subjected to a stupid challenge as far as I'm concerned, Sean Wright-Phillips, which, although he came back from the injury, he wasn't quite the same when he came back, and eventually his career had to come to its premature demise some 3 years later. But in the time that he was able to put on a West Ham shirt before the injury, more than after, it has to be said, like you say, pace, power, intelligence, he had it all. And I've a couple of previous contributors to this particular series have picked Dean Ashton, and I turned around and said that, in my opinion, he was Alan Shearer and Teddy Sheringham rolled into one, because he had the blunt force trauma of Alan Shearer, but he had the depth and the intelligence of a Teddy Sheringham as well when he needed it. Yeah,
he was a really special player, and I think to this day, I think we all sometimes think about that, what might have been. Now, we'll never know how long he might have stayed at West Ham. Obviously, he'd just been called up to England. How long more he would have been at West Ham, we don't know. But to be honest, that I don't really care about that. I mean, I think the sky was the limit for Dean Ashton. I mean, the sky was the limit. I mean, he was a very, very special striker. And it's still sickening when you think about it now, what happened to him. It really is. I mean, he's probably over it now and he's kind of made his peace with it, but I'm still sickened by it, because I just thought there was no limit to what he could have achieved in the game. I mean, what he could have done for England, Gatesy, and what he could have done for West Ham, or even if he had moved, say, to a major club. I mean, the sky was the limit for Ashton. He was that talented, and some of the goals he scored, like you say, some of them were those blunt force trauma goals where he just hits a pile driver, and then he'll just place a beautifully curled shot, inside the far post or something, or do something else sublime, chip the keeper, or score a wonderful lob. There was a lob he scored once, I remember, at Norwich, where the ball was played kind of long diagonal ball, and he was at quite a tight angle beyond the far post, and he just side foot on the volley, just lifted it over the keeper into the side netting at the far post. And it was just one of those goals where you just go, oh, you know what I mean? That's like, there's very few players, there's only so many players in the world that can do that kind of thing, that have the ability to do things like that. And Dean Ashton was one of them. And so it's a damn shame that his career was ended when he was 26, because, you know, he was just very, very special and 100% a game changer. You know, kind of player, like I said, you're having a bad game, you're in trouble, then you create one or two, maybe two chances in a game or three chances in a game, and if Ashton's on the end of it, he'll get 2 or 3 goals out of those 3 chances. He was that good a finisher, and he could go and win the game for you, or get a point, get you something out of the game where you maybe didn't even deserve it. So 100% as a game changer for me in the Premier League era at West Ham, got to put Ashton on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Dean Ashton. Just looking here at his stats for West Ham. Now, when I read this out, I know people are going to say it wasn't a special record, but you have to factor in that for a lot of the time, he had an ankle that was literally held together with bits of sellotape. 46 matches in the Premier League, 15 goals. He had 56 matches in all competitions, 19 goals. The whole of the 2006-7 season, he was out injured. He only played 4 games in the 2008-9 season, and he didn't kick a ball in the 2009-10 season. And indeed, in December of 2009, he had to admit defeat after just over 3 years of trying all sorts to get his ankle right. He just had to call it quits. And like you say, I don't want to, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I don't want to say it's a tragedy in like a sort of an earthquake or anything like that, but in terms of a footballing tragedy of someone that was at their peak, well, not at their peak, they were on an upward climb towards their peak, and even where they were at that point in their career, you looked and went, my goodness, what could this guy be? What I don't expect he'd have been like, you know, staying with us for sort of like many years. If he had an injury, he'd have in all likelihood gone to one of the top clubs, whether it would have been Manchester United, whether it would have been Chelsea, a team of that sort of magnitude. But
it's like when you think about Gatesy, how good he was at 22 and 23 years old.
Yeah.
And then to think what he might have been like at 26, 27, 28. I mean, he was going to be unbelievable.
I honestly think, Tom, I think if he'd have not got that injury, I don't think that it would be beyond the realms of possibility that he would have been targeting Alan Shearer's record. I'm not saying he would have beaten it, but I tell you what, I think he'd have got bloody close.
Yeah, and he'd have been, even for England, I think he would have been a massive goal scorer for England. He'd have been chasing down some records for England too, I believe.
Absolutely. So Dean Ashton is the third of the 4 heads that you've carved into your mountainside. You've got 1 left, and you've got to now just one last effort now, Tom. You've got to really sort of like, you know, dig deep. Eye of the tiger, mate. Go on. 4th head, carve it out. What you got for me?
It's only got to be one person, hasn't it? We've got Payet, Dimitri Payet. I just don't think you understand. Got to be Payet. I mean, you want to talk
Stop
about...
and take a breath from people watching. I'm sure there's some that are going, but how can you not have him as a game changer?
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I've seen a player be that good, that consistently. I mean, it was an entire season where he was just phenomenal. You know, he didn't come in and you know, start out brilliant and then like drop off a bit, or he didn't kind of have a slow burn and then eventually kind of get going and have a great second half of the season or something. Like, he came in, hit the ground running, and just kept going all season. Now, granted, he had a certain motivation, which was perfect timing for us. I think it was about timing as much as anything with Tevis. You know, basically, he was desperate to play at Euro 2016. He was absolutely desperate to make it into the French squad for that tournament. And he was struggling a bit at Marseille with consistency. and that's why he couldn't get in the team. Really, everyone knew his talent in France. They had great talent, but he was just not considered to be reliable. He couldn't really rely on Dimitri to turn up as such. He could be great one game and then kind of go missing in another game, and so that's why he wasn't getting the call up. Escape me who the French manager was at the time.
Was it Deschamps? Was it Deschamps in 2016?
Yeah, I think it might have been Deschamps. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but yeah, he couldn't get a call up, and so he made the move to West Ham into the Premier League to try to force his way into the French team for the Euro 2016. And so his motivation was massive. He wanted to prove himself to Deschamps that he was worth his place in the squad. And so he came highly motivated. This is an exceptionally talented player coming in highly, highly motivated to make sure that he's in that team. That Euro 2016 French team. And so he was really determined to prove himself to Deschamps that he could be consistent, that he could keep doing it game in game, week in, week out, game on game. And so our timing was perfect. Sometimes it's the timing, Gatesy,
Yep.
And our timing on signing him was perfect. I mean, we paid, was it 10.6 million?
I think it was that figure rings a bell. I can quickly
It was certainly
back.
in that ballpark.
10.7, yeah.
10.7, was it? Yeah. So for 10.7 million, when he came in, to be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about him. I had to do a little bit of Googling, and I thought, yeah, okay, this guy could be useful if we can get him playing. Oh, fucking hell, what did I know? I mean, he just hit the ground running, and the guy was just absolutely sensational. Just absolutely sensational. I've never seen it before at West Ham for an entire season. Like I say, Tevis did it for a certain period of time. Benoyoon, again, wouldn't be brilliant every game. He'd have his kind of quieter games as well. It was brilliant when he was on it. But, Payet came in, it was just unbelievable all season. Had very, very few games where he wasn't having a big impact. And I think, when was the last time we can say genuinely, that we had a player? I mean, we probably consider Declan Rice now to be a kind of world-class kind of midfielder, but this is obviously pre-Declan Rice. But I mean, it had been a long, long time before we had a player that was at that level, for an entire season, where Payet was genuinely one of the very best attacking midfielders in world football in 2015-16.
Well, he's a Ballon d'Or.
He got a Ballon d'Or nomination.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he got a Ballon d'Or nomination playing for West Ham. I mean, the guy, his skill was incredible. I mean, we all know about the free kicks. I mean, that free kick at home to Palace.
I mean, it was in the wall.
Yeah, and that was a big wall. Like, that wall was all... I think they put about 8 people in the wall.
Yeah.
Because they were terrified of him. They were terrified of Payet. So they put about 8 people in the wall. They were all like 6 foot plus or something. And he gave Wayne Hennessy absolutely no chance. Absolutely no chance. I remember Wayne Hennessy saying afterwards that he didn't move because he thought it was going in the upper tier. Yeah. The trajectory that it left his foot, like it was going way up there. And then it just had this just insane dip on it, and they brought it in under the post. And it was just and it had a curl as well. I mean, it kind of almost defied the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, we had an amazing season largely because of him. Like, we can talk about other players that had a really great season. We had a lot of players that played really, really well that season. But I think it was the same as the Tevis effect. About the rising tide lifting all boats.
Yep.
I think he just inspired everyone around him. And I think opponents as well were terrified of him. And one of the things I noticed was that players would just stand off him. Because they were actually afraid to try and get the ball off him, because I think, is this fucker's just going to skip past me, or is going to make me, and make me look like a cunt. You know what I mean? And so players didn't really want to go in and stuff. And so he opened up kind of opportunities. And then, of course, opposition managers would obsess about Payet. We'd be like, okay, we want to stop West Ham. We have to stop Payet. And so he'd get all this attention. They still couldn't stop him. But, I mean, I think Lanzini had an amazing season, 15-16, because Payet was there beside him. Payet was getting all the attention. So Lanzini was kind of just left there to kind of run about. And he always was finding himself in space and stuff. And so Lanzini flourished. And so, that I've never seen anything like that season we saw from Payet. It was incredibly special from a very, very special and talented player. He was absolutely world class. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest, Gatesy.
I mean, even the second half of the season, and I know it didn't quite hit the same heights as 2015-16, which is fair enough. But I was there, the game against Middlesbrough, where he picked the ball up on the left flank, roughly around about the halfway line, and just went on this merry dance, cutting through the Middlesbrough defence. Now, all right, you could turn around and say it was Middlesbrough, it was not sort of prime Real Madrid or whatever, but be that as it may, I mean, he went past 4, 5, 6 players round the goalkeeper and just slotted it in, calm as you like.
Yeah, I think it was 1, 2. I'm sure it was 5 players. 5 players. The first one was right on him as soon as he took his first touch out on the sideline, and he just skinned him. He feinted one way and then actually cut inside towards the byline and turned on a dime, and he was gone. Then he mugged off the fullback, and then he mugged off 2 centre backs. He made them all, I think he cut inside on the fullback, made him think he was going to go outside, and then cut inside. That was him out the way. And then he mugged off 2 centre backs, feigning to shoot. And then obviously, hit a low kind of placed shot inside the far post. I mean, it was just an incredibly special player. And, the world football was talking about him. He didn't just impact the Premier League. I mean, people all over the world were showing clips of Dimitri Payet doing amazing things in a West Ham shirt. And I mean, I think it gave us an awful lot of pride, didn't it, Gatesy, that we've got a player like that who's absolutely world class. I mean, our song, for him, obviously, I was a bit tongue in cheek, is better than Zidane, all that stuff. But that's what it reminded you of. A player like Zidane who was just incredibly special, had incredible feet, amazing skill, and got goals and assists. He didn't waste his possession. He didn't do all these silky, beautiful things and then make a balls of it. By bad pass or terrible finish. I mean, he could pass as well and he could finish. I mean, the only thing he probably couldn't do was maybe head the ball in the air very well in the penalty area. But who gives a shit? When he can do that with his feet, what do you need a head for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, he was amazing player, like you say, Ballon d'Or nominee. I remember that after Euro 2016, I think he scored the winning goal in France's opening game, if I remember rightly, against, I got a vague Romania. Yeah. Obviously, France got to the final. Portugal, nicked it in the final. But I remember that in the wake of that final, in the wake of that tournament,
he injured Ronaldo in that fight. Didn't he injure Ronaldo in the final?
I can't remember if it was him. Can't remember if it was him or not, but I remember that Real Madrid was apparently mooted as a destination for him, 60 million quid. Now, all right, we know that it ended badly and we didn't get 60 million quid for him, but while the time we had him, we had a genuine world-class player that, like you say, was being shown on highlight reels from Aberdeen to Auckland, all around the world. All around the world, there was this guy that was pulling off free kicks and passes from outer space. Do you know what I mean? He was just cut Gatesy, fences.
Yeah, even just his first touch, Gatesy. You know what I mean? Pulling the ball out the sky.
Yeah.
And just killing it dead right at his feet like it was a bag of cement.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It was
your first.
Yeah, I mean, some of his first touches were just incredible, and do you know? I mean, he put teams like Man City and Liverpool, Arsenal to the sword. He would just run through their players, and his footwork. He'd have 3 players around him, and he'd skin the 3 of them.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable footballer. It's you have to wonder about him. Where his head's at, given he hasn't had the career that he should have had. I mean, if he's capable of that, it's a shame for him really that he wasn't the player he should have been really career-wise. I mean, he could have. He's one. We saw in 15-16, talent-wise, absolutely one of the best players in world football.
He could have walked into any club team in the world. Any club team in the world wouldn't have looked out of place in that form that he showed in 15-16. He could have literally rocked up anywhere. He could have rocked up at Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus, you name it. He could have held his own, no problem at all. No problem at all. But for whatever reason, he went back to Marseille, and he's been there ever since. So I just hope he's happy. But you do sit there and think, another one, what could have been? But definitely a game changer in a claret and blue shirt, Tom. So, do you want to see your final effort, my friend?
Yes, let's have a look at my Mount Rushmore.
Peel back the curtain. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. Look at that beauty. Well, I say beauty. I mean, all right, excluding Carlos Tevis. All right, he's no oil painting, but look at that. You have to say, as far as a carving's concerned, Tom, it has a remarkable likeness to the man, and as well the other three.
Yeah, I think I've done well there. I'm definitely way better than the guy that did that bronze statue of Ronaldo.
Oh, mate, I think that I could probably give some bronze to my 5-year-old niece, and she could probably do a better job than that clown. Let's be completely honest.
That was horrific.
That's some great stonemasonry, mate. I've got to say, and this. I mean, did you sort of like do a crash course in stonemasonry before you come on here, sort of like a YouTube sort of channel?
Okay, I've got a confession to make.
Okay,
I come from a long line of stonemasons. I was born into it, mate.
Oh, see, there you go. It's in the genes. It's in the genes.
And just put that up, Gatey. Put that up again.
Okay.
Imagine those four in the team right now.
Oh my word! Well, let's see. Would you? All right. Would you have Dean Ashton over Antonio?
100%. Come on, Gatey, behave.
Oh,
behave.
Dear. Well, hang on. Yeah, but would you have? Well, seriously, you're telling me you'd have Dimitri Payet over Pablo Fornals, Tom? I mean, come on.
Yeah, look, I know some people will call me crazy, but it's just how I feel, Gatesy.
Nah, listen, mate, I can't say I disagree with a word you've said, to be fair. So, but anyway, Tom, I got to thank you for your time, your diligence, your hard work, a personal sacrifice to your hands. But you have done your job. You can now rest. So, Tommy, I'm going to say thank you very much indeed for your time on this particular venture.
Thanks for having me on, Gatesy. It was fun, and I'm glad. No, I'm happy. Like, I've officially now got my Mount Rushmore up on Forged from Iron. I'm in the books. That's it. It's in the books. It's there. Can't be taken away from me. I've got my Rushmore up there now.
Well, you could always come back, and the beauty of this concept is you could come back another day and do another genre.
Who knows? Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I might hit you up sometime saying, right, my hands have healed up and my arms aren't sore anymore, so I'm ready to go again, Gatesy.
I'm looking forward to the day, mate. You know my number. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment on and share this stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure you hit that bell for alerts on any new content as and when we upload it to the channel. And as always, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for your support. And I'm just going to ask you, Tommy, one very simple question. What are we, my friend?
We are fucking massive.
That'll do me. Come on, you irons. Mr. Son, your food order is ready for collection.